Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello there, welcome along. This is Business Connections Live. Great to have your company as always. We're live on a Monday, and what a lovely day. Well, it is down here in London anyway. What a lovely day it is. And we hope the weather is good where you are, no matter where you are across the UK, or in fact across Europe, or even across the world. Thank you very much for joining us today on this live broadcast on all channels, and it's good to have you with us today. Hope you're feeling good. Got a great guest lined up, and he is the sales director. He is Antonio Falco. Antonio, great to have you with us. How are you?
Good afternoon, Steve. I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for that very nice introduction. It was so nice, Steve. I thought, gosh, I can't wait to listen to myself. So, thank you for that.
Do you know what? I can tell you now, Antonio, we've had people in the past who have waited to hear what they're going to say. But I know that won't be the case with you. For those people that don't know who you are, Antonio, let's get down to the crux of this, because what we're talking about today is sales. We're talking about having faith in your business, getting your business through COVID-19, the way it's going to change when we come out the other side, and the way sales are going to change as well when we come out the other side. So for those people that think, well, who is this guy to tell us anything and to give us any advice? Just give us a brief background to who you are.
Well, actually, Steve, that's a very fair point. Who on earth am I, and why should they listen to me? Well, I guess you pay your money and you take your choice, and if I say something sensible in the next hour or so, then I hope that will help somebody in their business. I've been in sales now for over nearly 30 years now. Gosh, I've got a picture on my wall here of the time I worked for a company based in the US, and I just looked at the date on that picture, and had to think twice. So I help companies with sales and business development, and I'm just all about how on earth we can get the next customer in the door. Whether I'm worth listening to or not, well, the audience can make their own mind up on that.
So, it's very different at the moment, isn't it? The way things are, where we are with everything that is going on. Do you think there's been a paradigm shift at the moment? Do you think we're going to find ourselves coming out of this in a very, very different world?
I think so, Steve. I did a video just a couple of weeks ago to my group of followers, and one of the things I said in that, Steve, was it would be really important that you take the opportunity of just reviewing your entire business. So whilst you're in lockdown, why don't you look and see if the business you've been running so far is what you want to go back to? So ask yourself the question, do we want to go back to the way that it was before? And if the answer is no, then take the opportunity to completely revisit everything you do in your business and decide if you've got the right process, the right message, the right type of customer, and just take the opportunity of reviewing what it is you do so you come out the other side focused, more effective in what you're doing, and with maybe a different message if that's what the conclusion is.
I was going to say, there's a lot of people out there that are regurgitating all the old stuff at the moment. What they're doing, they're reading books, and they are becoming experts on particular topics with no experience, which I think is an interesting area anyway, and that could be a whole show in its own right. But you specialize in sales. You go into companies and you act as their sales director, proxy sales director, and you retarget sales teams. You explain to them what they should be doing, what the process of sales is all about. Do you think that process is going to change? Is it going to be different when we go back, or will the sales process fundamentally still be the same?
I think what will change is that process over the next few years will come into place where there's going to be more of an automated system. So in other words, what will happen is that most of the pre-sales work might be more automated, so that will allow salespeople to focus in on the deals that are likely to close, have a high percentage rate of closing, rather than spending most of their time doing paperwork and trying to themselves figure out whether or not they're talking to a particular prospect. So I think what will happen is more automation of a process, I think, is what's going to come down the line in the next few years. But I say to salespeople now, don't think that you still don't need the skills of being able to engage with a prospective customer and fundamentally understand what on earth is their problem in order that you might be able to show them a solution. So there's still going to be some human interaction. It's just that I think what will happen is that the process will be pushed down the line. The part of the process where you're interacting with the client might be pushed further down the line because there'll be a number of automated processes and steps that the client can go through themselves without having to engage with a salesperson. So in other words, buyers will become a bit more savvy. Business people will become more savvy. They'll do a lot of their own homework beforehand before they start to wanting to engage with a salesperson.
Let's be a little bit outspoken here at the moment. Do you think we're any good at sales anyway? And okay, this COVID-19's got in the way of that. But are we fundamentally okay at sales? Or are there a lot of order collectors out there who really aren't doing sales? All they're doing is they're waiting for the order to come in to process it. Are we any good at it, do you think, as a nation? Are Europeans good at doing sales, or are we not very good?
Well, I remember, you might remember yourself, Steve, the former chairman of ICI, what was his name? Sir John Harvey Jones. He did a series on how he was helping businesses to become more efficient and more effective in the way they operate. And he once said that the trouble with British industry is that they undervalue the art of the professional salesperson. I think there's an awful lot of reps out there and very few salespeople, but that's always been the case. If you talk to any major recruitment companies specialising in recruiting sales, they always struggle finding a really good salesperson. I've got a friend of mine who specialises in recruiting sales at a very high level in the IT security industries. So her clients are looking for the very best of the very best, and consequently will pay six figures as a basic salary. So you can already see that, on a six-figure basic salary, you're in the top 1% of earners, but you've got to be the very best of the very best. And one of the things she said to me a while ago was that a lot of her clients, who are typically small, mainly US-based specialist companies that are writing very intricate security software, what they don't ever want to hire is they don't ever want to hire a salesperson from one of the big IT companies, because those people have never actually been properly trained in the main, Steve, in the main. But what they do is they trade off the fact that they worked for or are working for a big named organization. So they don't necessarily have the skills. And I've come across a lot of those people in the past myself, working for a big company. And of course, it's much easier to get in the door, to have an initial conversation with a potential client if you're from XYZ worldwide company. So answer your question, no, we've never been good at it. Lots of reps, grateful salespeople.
Long story short, then, we're not very good at it. Okay, well, but I must admit, to a certain extent, I agree with that. There are people that I know that work for large multinational software companies, and it's the name of the software company. In fact, some people sometimes get distracted because they think that it is their charisma, personality, and sales technique that's getting them through the door, when in fact what's getting them in through the door is the name of the organization they work for, and they've only got that kudos while they are working for that organization.
Yes. And then when they start their own business, because they think they're going to be good at doing that, and that's great, we need people to start their own business and build another business, they suddenly realise that actually their own name doesn't get them anywhere, and that all of a sudden they're doing all the jobs that their corporate employees to do for them. And you're right, they have nothing, they have no substance behind them. It's just the name of the company. But
now, what I'm going to say is, if you've got a question for Antonio, or there's something that you say that you vehemently disagree with, if you want to get on either LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, you can leave your messages there, and I'm sure he will either ignore them or he will answer them. Linda's come up this morning. She said the way that we change our business must be viewed in the long term, not just the short term. And I think that's really very true at the moment, isn't it? That's very, very important for us all to remember, because it is now long term, isn't it?
It has to be. This is why I don't like some of these business programs where you go along and you pitch your idea, and you stand on a stage and sing a song. It's all very short term. Business is a long-term game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And so I say to anybody that's thinking of starting a business or is running a business, think of this as a long-term project. It's not going to be flash in the pan, make your £1 million in the first month of you being in business. It doesn't happen that way. Nothing of any value is done in a hurry. Nothing of any value is built on sand. What's of value is something that you build over the years, and you actually develop a reputation, and that's key. You develop a great product, and that's also key. And by the way, when it comes to product and service, I keep saying to companies, whatever happens, never ever compromise on the delivery of your product or service, so that nobody can ever say to you, you've got a poor product or a poor service, whether they buy it or not. So business has to be based on some very strong and very definite foundations, and they are long-term plan, great product, great service, great reputation, and they are built over time. But I think if I remember a conversation I had with a pal of mine who's an IT consultant, specialises in a particular brand of IT. You know, he's currently working for a major city in the city. Sorry, a major company based in the city. Now, over this lockdown period, they've had a couple of hundred people all now working from home, and they're saying to themselves, why on earth do we need £10 million worth of offices in the city? And it's a really good conundrum, a really good question to ask. So the discussion about the way things are going to change long term, what I see in terms of practicality is that there's an awful lot of people that actually want to go to work. They actually want to go to a place of work because that's how they operate as individuals. But now I think what's happening is that people are getting used to working from home. The only trouble is that a lot of people that are working from home haven't got a setup. I'm lucky, Steve, like yourself. I've got a home office here. You know, this is my domain. This is it's not my shed, but it's part of it. You know, it's my room in the house, and this is my home office, as you can see from around me. So I'm lucky. Most people don't have that opportunity. So that's something that needs to be resolved. So I think what might happen is that instead of going to the office 5 days a week, you might end up going 2 days a week. But of course, the question still remains, well, how on earth are we going to operate that as a business? Because we still need to have offices. Well, no, what you have is you shrink down the size of office you have, and then you say to Steve, why don't you come in on a Tuesday and a Thursday? And you say to Linda, you come in on a Monday and a Wednesday. And so therefore you still have the feeling that you're part of the company working in the company, but you're only there for a couple of days of the week instead of 5 days of the week. Because for sure, Steve, one thing that people are not missing is they're not missing standing on the platform at 7:15 in the morning trying to get into London and paying £6,000 a year for the privilege. Nobody's missing that.
No, you did right, actually. Tell you what's interesting, going back to what you were saying earlier on, Ian Dixon, once again, an old friend of the programme, he said today, I've been sharing an analogy around golf. Play each hole independently and look at today. But no, this is about the round as a whole. It is the long game, which is exactly what you were saying, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the long game. And anybody in business now, as I keep saying earlier, I think you should sit down and look at what your long game is. I said it in previous programs that we've done. You know, what do we need to think about in terms of a business plan? One thing, and I've said, you know, you've got to, what am I selling? Who am I selling it to? How am I trying to do it? And what are my targets? But the one thing I never mentioned was why. Why are people going to buy our product and service? And so now that we've had a complete change of the environment, will some of it go back to some normality? Yes, some of it will go back to some normality. We're not going to completely change. We're still going to see people. We may not see them, you know, once a week. We might not see them twice a month, and we do the rest on Skype or Zoom or on Teams or something. So, you know, look at your business in terms of how you think it's going to change moving forward, and put a long-term plan to it. So some immediate targets, some immediate changes, but where are you going to be in 3 years' time? Where are you likely to be in 5 years' time? That's how you need to start thinking. And this is a fantastic opportunity, away from all the noise, away from the crowds, to be able to actually sit down and think that through.
I tell you what, let's cut the theory for a moment. What is the one practical piece of advice that you would give somebody at the moment who is maybe, I mean, I don't know what we're week 6, 7, something like that now, aren't we?
I've lost track. I don't know what day of the week it is anymore.
I'm completely losing count of where we are in all of this. But If somebody is sitting there now and they're beginning to start to get anxious, beginning to get a little bit worried about what they should be doing, is there anything that you're doing in your business to make certain that you have a business when you come out of this? Is there any actions that you are taking on a daily basis? Because so many people at the moment are just sitting down watching box sets, aren't they?
Okay, so two things. Park all the business books and the box sets to one side. Okay, get yourself a piece of paper and a pen, and do the following. But I would say this first of all: do not get anxious and don't get worried. Okay, because you are in control of where your business is going, and you're in control of the actions that you take. So nobody can take that away from you. Nobody's going to be able to stop you from making a call or going to a meeting or making a Skype meeting. Nobody's going to stop you from any of that activity. You are in control. So take heart that you are running your business, and it is down to you. So one of the things I will say to you is, if it's meant to be, it's down to me. So it is meant to be. So take heart that don't get anxious and don't get worried. Get a piece of paper and sit down and think to yourself, am what I'm supplying the right product? Do I need to make some modifications? Have a look at your current customer base from the past as well as currently, and look and see, are they the sort of customers that I need to be targeting? Why did they buy my product or service? What could I have done better? So again, that's what I'm doing. I'm taking the opportunity to rethink my business and take this as a turning point. Sometimes, you've got to reinvent yourself occasionally. Every 3 or 4 years, you should sit down and reinvent yourself, and that's what I do. So I'm taking the opportunity of taking my own advice, Steve, and actually looking and saying to myself, what sort of customers am I really after? What do I really want to sell them? How do I want to deliver it? What changes do I need to make? And so, for example, my own changes, I think, are coming for me in terms of the previous question you asked, to the short and long-term changes, which is what Linda asked about. I can see myself in a situation where, instead of going to see a client, for example, once a week because that's what's required, I'm going to go and see them a couple of times a month. And the rest of the time, what I'll do is I'll have Skype calls or Zoom calls or team calls with people. I'll use the technology a bit more efficiently, considerably more efficiently than I have done before, because now we're used to it. I mean, I've never made so many team Skype and Zoom calls in my entire life. If I look back over the last 100 years, I've never made so many calls as I have done in the past 4 or 5 weeks. But the one thing I did do, Steve, in the first month of this lockdown, what I didn't do, and I think it was a mistake of a lot of people, not that I made this mistake, by the way, is that what I didn't do is I didn't think to myself, great, how can I make a quick, fast buck out of this? How can I get in touch with people? How can I sow fear into people and tell them that they need to look at their business plan right now? No, I thought that was the wrong thing to do. And a lot of people started pitching their product or service on a variety of different platforms and didn't allow people to think to themselves, how are we going to get around this? So in the first month, Steve, what I think we were all trying to do was we were all trying to figure out how on earth we were going to operate from home. How on earth were we going to operate our team from home? How on earth were we going to make sure we were in proper contact? How were we going to, and I've talked to a client this morning actually, whose team are also working from home. And one of the things that he just mentioned actually, but he mentioned before, but he mentioned it this morning, was he was acutely aware of people's mental health. Now, look, I'm not, I don't want to sort of take the program back in terms of mental health, but what he was very aware of, and what he was keen to make sure is that people were happy and had the things and the tools they needed to do their job. And so one of the things he started to indicate at one of my suggestions was, yes, you might have a daily team call first thing in the morning just to check how everybody is and that everybody's at their desk. And that wasn't the reason he was doing it. I said, why don't you have a cup of coffee in the afternoon just to shoot the breeze? 10 or 15 minutes, cup of coffee in the afternoon, not to talk about work, but just to make sure that everybody's okay, and if there's any issues that are outside of the workplace that you might need to deal with. So I chose in the first month not to do any business activity, but to actually take the opportunity of looking inwardly, looking at what I do and how I do it, and hope that I could put together a plan that was going to come out into the future. So my short response is clear away the business books, clear away the box sets, get a piece of paper and a pen, sit in the sun. It's going to be a great week this week. And just think about who on earth you are, what is it you're doing, and where you want your business to go.
I'm going to ask you the question when we come back in a few moments' time. Are we too late now where we are in the cycle to be doing that? Have we missed the opportunity? Has the horse bolted and the stable store is wide open at the moment? And have other people stolen the lead from us? Or could we still catch up? I'll be very interested to hear what your comments are on that in just a few moments. Is that all right?
Sure. Absolutely.
That's all right. You take it easy. You can have a gulp of coffee now. My guest on today's show is Antonio Falco. He is the sales director. Thank you very much indeed for all the messages that are coming in on social media. Hello to Christine Belcher, who says, a great show. Thank you very much indeed. I hope you're enjoying it. Thank you very much to Linda. It's great to know that Lynn Skinner is watching as well. She's a great, you know Lynn, don't you, actually? You know Lynn Skinner. And in fact, you're working with Lynn Skinner this year as well, aren't you? If it all works out.
Well, I've just been helping. I haven't done very much. I'm not going to embellish this, but I got involved with Young Enterprise, which is a fantastic charity and a really great advocate for business in terms of allowing school children to actually take the opportunity of starting and running a business. And it's a competition that runs for several months, and we've just culminated in the regional finals. So I was one of the judges for the regional finals.
Fantastic. Okay, listen, I am going to come back to you in a moment. We're getting lots of response as well about being able to carve a niche. More about that in just a few moments' time. But great to know that people are enjoying today's program. If you have a question or if you just want to share your wisdom with us all, because this is a business community that we've got here. This is about sharing ideas, sharing the way you want to move businesses forward, what you think we should be doing. Let us know. Get onto LinkedIn if you want. Go onto Facebook. Go onto YouTube. Go onto any of the social media platforms. Leave your comment there. We don't mind. We'll air them here. And we'll see what Antonio thinks about what's going on at the moment. Antonio, more from you in just a few moments' time. You're watching Business Connections Live. We're live here on a Monday. Great to have your company. Got Angus coming up in a few moments and more information from Ian Dixon as well. So Angus Grady, Ian Dixon, could it be you next that we feature on today's program? Get in touch with us here at Business Connections Live. Let's go back a week now, shall we? We had Dee Blick on the program. She was straight talking from the hip. She told us what we should be doing. It was one heck of a program last week. Lots of great response to it as well with the key takeaways. Here's Dee Blick.
Is look at the role of marketing in your business pre-pandemic and post-pandemic and plan for both. And it might be that you're having to, at the moment, focus on just existing customers, keeping them in the loop like Raring to Go are doing with their online content. It might be that the most you can do at this present moment in time is stay in contact with existing customers without trying to flog too much to them. Decide, okay, if I'm going to be marketing post-pandemic, who are the audiences I'm going to market to? What needs might have changed post-pandemic, and get your marketing sorted out now. So just as I did with Calimake, start talking to the editors, the journalists, start formulating the benefit messages and the marketing messages that you are going to take post-pandemic. Work on them now. Get your marketing plan ship-shape. At the risk of sounding like a repetitive old bat, it goes to who do I want to reach, why, where do I find them, what are the messages, what are the barriers, what are my top 3 benefits that I need to convey. I would also say decide on the tactics you're going to deploy, something I haven't talked about in great length here, but what top 3? Is it going to be a combo of direct mail, email marketing and picking up the phone? Generally, marketing works when you link activities together. Understand at what stage in the communication process you are with a prospect or with a customer. Am I here to generate awareness, to generate interest, to get them to the evaluation stage, the desire stage where they really want to do business with me, and the action stage, which is ka-ching. Map on that continuum where the people you are communicating with sit, where the people you are communicating with will sit, because this is going to influence your message and the sequence of messages you're going to deliver. And finally, above everything else, no matter who you are communicating with, you answer the crucial question, what's in it for them? And that's what's made me be without being a bragging old bat, very successful at what I do, at generating sales that go into the millions for clients, is I'm always focused not on what my clients want, but on who the people they are targeting with want to hear, and what will actually get them to act on. So to quote on Raymond Rubicam, we've always got to have impact. That quality in an advertisement that strikes suddenly against the reader's indifference and enlivens their mind to receive your sales message. That's what you're all about, is enlivening the mind of the recipient to receive what it is you are communicating to them.
She really does talk some common sense, doesn't she? A fantastic program there from Dee Blick last week on Business Connections Live. And don't forget, if you're thinking to yourself that you'd like to be involved with Business Connections Live, or you'd like to come on one of our live programs to help raise your profile perhaps, then why don't you get in touch with us here at Business Connections Live? It's dead easy to do. All you got to do is drop us an email to this address. It is studio@businessconnectionslive.com. Or if you want, you can pick the phone up and give us a ring on 01784 256 777. The telephone line has been open all the way through this, so if you want to get in touch with us, please do. Don't forget as well, you can follow our stream of consciousness at BCL Business TV, but probably the best place to go, along with Facebook and places like that, of course, is to go to our website at businessconnectionslive.com. Over 400 programs. In fact, this it's 400 we're coming up to now. So this is... or 300, I can't remember where we are. We're at 299 with you at the moment, I think. I think that's the current program. So great to have a really good guest on this really fantastic show today. Antonio, your name came up a few times while Dee was on there. I realised that for a short length of a while that I didn't have your name. But for those people that don't know, Antonio Falco, he is the sales director. Okay. I asked a question beforehand. If the stable door is open and the horse is bolted, are we a little bit too late now to be doing some of the advice that you're given, or is there still an opportunity?
Well, Steve, I want to be positive. And so my immediate response when you asked that question was, no, it's never too late. It's never too late for a number of reasons. One, because as a small business, you can move quickly. Two, are we out of this yet? I'm not sure how far down the track we are in terms of getting out of this current situation. I mean, the government last week or the week before announced a continuation of the furlough system or furlough payments to the end of October. And that took me a bit by surprise, because I thought they've obviously got some data that we don't have. So no, look, it isn't too late. And, from carrying on from my previous message, you're in control of your business. I remember talking to somebody a few years ago. I was on the phone to them, Steve. I was trying to get an appointment with them because I thought they might be a potential customer, having done my research on them. And I ended up talking to the managing director, Steve, and he said to me, well, the government this and the government that, and I can't do this and the government... I said, can I just ask you a quick question? Does the government run your business? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, does the government run your business? Because all you've been telling me the past couple of minutes is that the government's stopping you doing this and stopping you doing that. And so I said, you run your business. You have to make decisions within the parameters that we're currently working in. Is it too late, Steve? No, it isn't.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, and that's been backed up by other experts that we've got online with us. Angus Grady, he's come in and he said, we've all got plenty of time to carve a niche, which is good news. I'm sure we're all going to be pleased about that. Ian Dixon's come back with another comment. Let me see what Ian's saying. Ian's saying, identify 10 important people to you and your business. This is good advice. You were saying this to me last week, actually, Antonio. Get in touch with them and let them know they've been identified as important to you when you all return back to work again. And it's interesting. This week, last week, I had a phone call from somebody that I dealt with last year, and he actually did some work for me, and he did some modifications to some equipment, and I was actually very touched. He just phoned up to say, how are you? Is everything all right? And that really made such a big impact on me.
It does, and I think this is an opportunity. You asked me earlier on, what action should people take? The next practical step, once you've understood what it is you want to do with your business and how you might want to change it and how you might want to change the message. I remember Dee Blick's program last week. She was all about trying to make sure you honed your message correctly. So take the opportunity of making sure that you've got your message correct and that you've got your marketing correct. But then the next step is do some homework on identifying the type of customer that you're after. So yes, that will include some of the people you've had as customers in the past, but it also will include some of the people that you want to target in the future. I came across a post on LinkedIn just a few weeks ago, and somebody quite angrily, but quite rightly, had put up a post saying, I keep getting some business consultant or consultants contacting me, telling me that they're going to send my business into the stratosphere and they can really know how to help my business, not realizing that my business was in the hospitality industry and I had to actually close both my hotels and I couldn't accept any guests. So how on earth they were going to help me was ridiculous. The point there that was being made was they hadn't done their homework. So practical actions, take the opportunity of doing your homework, hone the type of customer that you're looking for, and then do your research. I do my research, Steve. I'm not scattergun. I ring people, and one of my phrases is, I run you by design, not by default.
Which is a very interesting one and an important one for us all to remember. Interesting question. Could you just move to the centre of the screen again? That's it. Thank you. If you don't mind, thank you very much. Angus Grady once again agreeing with you. He's saying this. Telephone is a weapon of mass discussion. Thank you. Where are you going? Where are you going? Get back. There you go. You're in the right place now. Linda's come up with a question for you, and she's saying, does Antonio think that organisations like the FSB and CBI are supporting SMEs by helping them to keep up with the changing work environment? Are they dinosaurs that are stuck a little bit in the past? We hear comments from them all the time. CBI, you would like to think, is a forward-thinking organisation. I think they've been obstructive personally in the past. That's one of my feelings about the way that we approached Brexit. I don't think they were any great shakes or help during that. And to a certain extent, FSB... Pardon?
They had their own agenda.
And the FSB probably very similarly as well. What's your thoughts about organisations like that? And I know you've been in the past close to them, so if you don't want to answer that, fine, I understand.
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't I give an answer to that towards the end of the programme, because I think if we have time to do so, I'll answer it in the round in terms of, you've asked the very first question, what do people need to do with their businesses? And so I've said, look, you've heard my answers, you're in control, you've got the opportunity, take the opportunity. But actually, there's a big element to this as well, which, and I'm going to contradict myself, which is about the government. Actually, what are they doing, and what are business organisations doing to actually make sure that the environment is right? And so I'll answer that. If we have 10 minutes at the end, I'll answer what I think is the bigger picture of what's going on in regards to business and what might happen as we go forward.
All right, then. Let's talk about basic sales techniques then.
Yeah.
Let's get down to the nitty-gritty of what this is all about. You're the sales director. You go in there and you talk to organisations, you talk to salespeople, to sales teams. So what are the basic techniques that we should all be remembering? I know you've covered them sort of briefly at the very beginning by sitting down and identifying what your key benefits are. But is there a danger that we're pitching but not selling?
Okay, so let me just cover the first thing you just said there. You said the main benefits. Okay. First and foremost, we have no benefits. No company has got any benefits. All we have is a bunch of features that might be of benefit to somebody. What you're trying to do in the sales meeting with a prospective customer is to figure out which of your features might be a benefit for them. There's an old saying, one man's meat is another man's poison. So therefore what happens is that most reps, not salespeople, they go in there and pitch. And what do I mean by that is they go in there and they give their entire sort of overview of their product or service in their company, hoping that something will stick. That's not selling. That's hoping. Right. The job of the salesperson, the job of the business person is to try and understand what the problem is so that you can show them a solution. So what we have, Steve, are a bunch of features that might be of benefit to somebody. The job of the salesperson and the business owner is to figure out which of his features are going to be a benefit. And so that comes about by questions and answers that you have to formulate. I'll come to that in a second. But before I give you a couple of techniques that are useful, Steve, let me just put you on the spot a second. So we're doing this over the internet. You're a studio. I'm at my home office. I love coming into the studio. When all of this is done and we're back to some sort of normality, love to come and do the program in the studio. So can I suggest, is that going to be at the end of the year or the beginning of next year?
I think that'll be later this year. I think we'll be back later, and it's been interesting as well that we're getting organizations and leaders of organizations. They're approaching us, and what they're saying is that we like this kind of Zoom delivery of messages, but what we want to do is that we want to put our CEOs, our managing directors, our heads of our businesses in a more professional environment, and then bring in the contributors from outside using Zoom and things like that. But people are beginning to look for a more polished production. It's interesting. We saw this with the BBC. When COVID-19 started, everybody was talking up everybody's nose. Every laptop was sitting on the desk. Every camera was sitting at navel height. And we were looking up everybody's nose. And less and less over the period of weeks now, we're seeing more and more cameras at the right height. We're getting better production value actually from it all. And I think that's something that people, because to me, what this is all about is this is your brand that you're playing with. And so when you're doing video, I don't think any old rubbish is a good thing. When I worked in radio, one of the things that we used to say was to get a delinquent listener back will cost you more than getting a new listener. Yes. Once they leave you, they will never come back again. And actually, in the environment that we're in now, I think that we don't get a second chance. If those people that say you can put video on your website, doesn't matter what it's like, just put it on your website, because then you've got video. If it's rubbish video, people won't come back. They do not give you the second chance. And that's a problem that I think businesses have got. And I think there's a lot of consultants out there, a lot of agencies, a lot of video production companies who really are missing the mark on the message. It's about professionalism and the reputation of your brand. And I think we're forgetting that. Shall I get off my hobby horse now?
You're absolutely right. And, why am I sitting here with a suit, shirt and tie? It's because I've had a call, and it isn't one of my new suits. I'll wear that for the studio. But just to be clear, so you're going to have me in the studio before the end of the year. Great. Well, there's one technique there for you, Steve.
Okay, yes. So you're right. So you're going to be definitely back in the studio before the end of the year.
So there we are. So there's a technique for you.
Oh, right. So get on the program. What a great idea. Thank you very much indeed. I finally got there. Thank you. So if you want to get in touch with us here, don't forget, just drop us an email to this address and you could be on the program like Antonio.
So just what you were saying earlier on. So I look forward to being in the studio with you, Steve. So what you were saying a second ago in terms of professionalism, yes, one of the things that I harp on about is, you've got to look the part, smell the part, and talk the part. Hence why I'm sitting here with a suit, shirt, and tie, because I've got another 2 Zoom calls coming up after this. But you said something very interesting in terms of listeners and losing a listener and trying to find another one. That's the same in any business, and it's the same in sales. So many salespeople run around looking for new customers when they've got a whole raft of them in front of them that they're not maximizing. So here's another activity that people should be looking at when they go through review of their business. Look at your current customer base and say to yourself, is there another product or service that I could be supplying? Because if they bought from you already, you've got a really good chance of them buying again. Because unless you've made a complete and utter hash of it, but if you stick to my rules and my philosophy of whatever you end up delivering, there cannot be no compromise. So whatever product or service you deliver, Steve, there cannot be any compromise, so that nobody can ever say you delivered a shoddy service. So if you follow that philosophy, look at your current client base and go back and decide what it is you might be able to sell them in the future, or now even. So that's the other task to do, is to look at your client base and go, what is it? What else can I possibly sell them? What else can I enhance in terms of a product or service?
Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into the business of selling microphones for web calls. That's one of the things I'm going to do. Thank you very much to Andy Dobson, Antonio's audio. So can you get closer to the microphone? Sorry. Yeah. We tried to send him out on Saturday to get actually another microphone, didn't we, when we were trying it out? But there you go. I've turned you up at my end, so hopefully Andy will resolve that. Here's somebody that you know as well, Tim Coe. Never t-shirt, never jeans, never casual. What's that all about then?
Because Tim does my videos. So whenever I shoot a video, Tim puts it all together. And the great thing about Tim is I never have to tell him the sort of video I like him to put together. So I just provide the content and he puts the whole thing together. So the little promo video that you saw for this show, which I've been sending around and putting on LinkedIn, Tim put that together. So in one of my videos, the last video I did, and you can watch all my current videos on LinkedIn. There's a channel called The Sales Director. I said that I was never one of those in t-shirts and jeans. Again, because I was talking about the fact that when I go and see clients, this is my uniform. It's a suit, shirt and tie. And I remember when I was a young salesman, I worked for a fantastic company based in Manchester. And at one of the sales meetings, Steve, the sales director, a fantastic guy called Dave Huxley, you might even be listening, he taught me everything I knew, everything I know. He stood up at the sales meeting and he said, right, this is the uniform, or this is the type of attire that we want people to wear. Dark suit, white shirt, moderate tie. Because he said, what we want to do, we want to get away from the Hawaiian shirts and kipper ties so that we actually look professional. And for years and years after I left that company, Steve, I couldn't get out of wearing a dark suit and a white shirt. It was ingrained in me. And as you can see, nothing's changed.
And nothing's changed, and it's still there. But you're dead right. I think, I mean, you know, we could be both wearing shorts at the moment. Nobody would really know, as it is television.
I'm not.
I think I did last week. But that's what's interesting about this. There is a particular look, and I quite like the idea. It makes you look professional. Once again, it's talking about brand, and I think there is a little bit of a loss of that at the moment. And a lot of people do feel that the jacket off, the sleeves rolled up, no tie on, makes you look like you're down with the workers. And I actually don't think that. I think there's something that quite nice about wearing a tie, a jacket. It just makes you look like that you're focused and you're ready for action.
Well, you said something very interesting there, and Dee Blick talked about branding last week as well. One of my contacts and a fantastic guy called Spencer Gallagher. He might be watching this afternoon. He said to me, "Yeah, that's your brand." And it is. This is my brand. So whenever I walk into a situation, it's not that I'm trying to set any type of standard. Any standard I'm setting is for myself. Because one of the things it does for me is it puts me in the right frame of mind. If I've got up in the morning, showered, shaved, put on a suit, shirt and tie, I feel completely different. It puts me into a business frame of mind. And so that's one of the reasons I do it. The other reason is, as Spencer said to me quite rightly, that is your branding. So this is part of my entire package. Everything I try and do, from my website to my paraphernalia to the way that I look and the way I promote, it's all to do with the brand. But fundamentally, I feel comfortable like this. I just feel horribly uncomfortable if I have to walk into a situation where it is low key. And I tell you, I'll give you a quick example. I had a client based in Cambridgeshire. So that was several months ago. They rang me and said, "Look, can you come and talk to us about our sales situation?" So absolutely no problem. And they rang me the day before and said, "We're looking forward to seeing you. By the way, we are a jeans and casual dress kind of company. So please don't come in your suit, shirt and tie." And I said, "But actually, that's who I am." She said, "No, we don't want that. So just turn up in your jeans, shirt." So I got home that evening. I said to my wife, "I've got to turn up with that suit, shirt and tie." And she said, "Look, just run with it, okay? That's what they've asked you to do. Just go with it." So I did. And I actually turned up. And I tell you now, Steve, the journey up to Cambridgeshire was about an hour and a half. It was the most uncomfortable drive I've had for years because I felt absolutely dreadful. I didn't feel right. And I walked in and I still didn't feel right. Now, they became a customer. But at that point, I said to them, the next time I'm coming, it's suit, shirt and tie, because that's who I am and that's my business. I'm not going to water down my business because that is who I am. And funny enough, actually, what happened was the days that I went in, the people that I was there to meet started to dress a bit more smartly, less casually, because they knew I was coming in. I didn't ask them to, but they just did.
I love it.
It's about mindset, Steve. It's a mindset, Steve. You know, this "I'm too cool for school" isn't me.
Well, it's interesting because Tim's come back as well. He says smart attire, smart thinking. And it kind of says it all, really, doesn't it? Let me ask you your views on automation. We've got David Holland very shortly, just giving the key takeaways from the program that he was on. And David Holland, he sets up systems for businesses and organizations using the likes of, as it was then, Infusionsoft, because it's changed its name since then. But that's what he would do. It's this automation system. What's your feelings about using automation in sales?
I think it's, as I said earlier on in the program, I think more and more automation in the preliminary part of the sales process is definitely coming. And the Infusionsoft type of automation, which is really geared about the message you were sending via email, so it would preempt and pre-program a set of emails that would go through. The key thing behind it is make sure that the message is consistent as you start to automate your process, but also make sure that what you're not doing is making it look like it's an automated approach. Because I think that's worse. The minute I think you take out the personalization out of it, I'm not comfortable with that. So make sure it's still personal, but make sure that the message is also consistent and runs on from the previous message. That's where the mistakes are being made, in my opinion.
I must admit, there is a lot of automation happening now on LinkedIn. I don't know about you. You link in with somebody, and the automated messages that are coming back, the ones that really get my goat up, and I'm sure Angus would have a comment on this, is if I was would you like to get more customers? Where they get the 3 qualifying questions. Could you handle more customers? Well, yes, I could. If I showed you an easy way that you could do that, would that be of interest to you? Well, yes, it would. And you're getting more and more of that. And there must be a textbook out there that is doing the rounds that have got these scripts in them that people are using. And the moment I see that, it's a huge switch off. Maybe they're working on the principle of numbers. They're not working on the principle of that one-to-one communication.
Well, I come back to two things, Steve. One, the story of the guy who was running a hotel and he was being bombarded by people trying to help him without understanding his business. 2, yes, I think it's a number situation. If you've got a product which is just numbers based and it isn't a complex problem that requires a complex understanding and detailed understanding of what the problem might be in order that you can show a solution. So yeah, if it's just if you're selling just a bit of some I don't know, stationery or whatever it may be that doesn't require any major intelligence behind it, then fine, it's a numbers game. But I tend to, like you, dislike the fact that those things come through. So you know what? I think we need to dispense with the get rich quick speakers, the get rich quick emails, there's no shortcut. Let me give you another message to you and those people that are kind enough to watch. Okay, there is no shortcut to this. I said earlier on, running a business and establishing a business is a marathon. It's not a sprint. I've tried all the shortcuts. There aren't any, and it doesn't work. There's no substitute for doing the work. There's no substitute for having a great product. There's no substitute for understanding and honing your message and understanding what your customers or potential customers need from you. There isn't, in my opinion.
Got to agree with you. And interesting as well, Angus did come back. He said, agree, Steve, far too many similar messages or posts about survive and thrive solutions. They're all the same. And he's dead right. They are all the same. And that is the problem that we've got out there. Listen, if you're using LinkedIn, this is from me to you, not to you, Antonio, but to people that are using LinkedIn, use it intelligently. If you want to find out some really good words of advice and you want to figure out the best way to use LinkedIn, if you want to make certain your profile's right, go see Angus Grady. You'll find his link. He's done a number of shows for us here. He gives good advice on using social media in that particular respect. If you want to find out how you should be sorting out your sales technique, then you need to be listening to Antonio Falco, because he's the guy that will understand that. But there is this place in business for, more from you in a moment, Antonio, there is this place in business for using some form of automation. And as we said for a long time, Infusionsoft was one of the lead packages that was out there. You've got Active Campaign. You've even got MailChimp as well at the most basic of all levels. But these automation systems are very, very clever, and they can do a lot of the grunt work for you to get you to a point where you should really be communicating on a one-to-one basis with your client or your potential customer. Just to give the key takeaways from his program, here's David Holland. He's from Excels, and it was an interesting show looking at the way that they put together the automation systems for their clients to actually get results.
I'm David Holland from Exceller Limited. The real key for me is we need a tool, we need some kind of automation to take care of the marketing and the sales that are going on in the business, as well as the invoicing and the follow-up. So have a tool, then use the tool nice and simply to get started. And what we're trying to do with the marketing concept that we're discussing today is to communicate with people, communicate with human beings, and continuously communicate with human beings, adding value until they put their hands up and say, yes, please, I am interested in the conversation now. And then we just follow up with that. So develop the relationship and continuously discuss and keep the relationship going with our customers and prospects. And that's what gives us consistency. Once we've got consistency, the stress and the pressure of running a business just eases a little bit, because we know we're going to get a continuous flow of new business and money coming in at the end of the month.
Some really good advice actually there from David Holland. And I think what was good about what he was saying was he was emphasizing it is about creating relationships again, wasn't he? He wasn't somebody who was saying, look, this system is going to do it all for you. It's going to sort it all out. You don't have to worry anymore. What he's saying is use the tool to create a relationship.
Exactly, yeah. So as I said earlier on, what's going to happen is that there'll be more automation in that pre-sales period that will help you to identify quicker the ones that the potential customers that you should be spending the time on. But you're still going to have that intervention. So that's what I think is the next step. It'll be exactly that process of shortening of that initial pre-sales period.
All right, then let's look at some of the things we were going to talk about and we have talked about. So we've learned about some basic sales techniques. We've revised our business plan effectively as well. Have we covered in depth attitude, how to recheck your attitude to this all?
No, we haven't touched upon it at all.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit then about your attitude to moving forward then.
There's an old adage, if you don't believe in your business, why on earth should I? So in the process of you reviewing what you're doing, I think what will happen is something magical may happen, and you may actually start believing in your business again, and you might start take some hoping that actually there is a future and that you will actually be able to come through this leaner, stronger, and more effective. So attitude, yeah, take the opportunity. And one of the things I've been doing, Steve, is reading more. And one of the things I said in my previous video was, take the opportunity to read more. Not just business books, but a variety of different types of books, because what will happen is that you start to change the way that you think. You start to actually develop a different thinking process through the activity of reading. Look, it's very simple, folks. It's like this. You're in business. You've already done the most difficult thing, and that is to start. That is the most difficult things to take. I remember my first few days, weeks, months, years in business. They were difficult, and there's ups and downs in business, and that's happened for me over the past 20 plus years. But what happens is that you start to become resilient, and you start to say to yourself, I've been here before, I know how to get through this. So the great thing about attitude is that you develop what I call a mental toughness, and you start to understand how to overcome businesses. And this is problems. And this is why if we finish our program off in terms of the previous question you asked, business and government and business organisations, I'll maybe touch upon how they play the part. But you know what, folks? Activity, focus, and a plan will see you through.
Actually, that's very interesting, because you've led us on very nicely. That takes us all the way back to the question that came in from Linda earlier on. FSB and CBI, are they supporting SMEs? You said if you had 5-10 minutes at the end of the program, then you'd give us an answer on that. So go on then, give us an answer. Are they supporting us?
How long have I got? How long have I got? Okay, let me see if I can try and because I didn't anticipate this question, but let me just see if I can try and do this in the round. And you can tell that I'm thinking because I'm looking away from the camera. So I've said all the way through this program that you've got control of your business. It's an opportunity to look at it, review it, etc., etc. All the stuff that I've said over the past 45 minutes. So I'm going to slightly contradict myself, well, hopefully not too much, in terms of there is another player in this. And the other player in this, Steve, is the government. Because the government create the conditions for us to start, run, and establish a business. And so I'm hoping that what they're going to do is they're going to actually seriously look at the business environment and really understand what the business environment needs and business people need in order to pick the economy back up. Because I said in my video the other day that for sure one thing we're going to need is we're going to need businesses back up and running so that they can pay their taxes in order to get the economy back straight. And if we've ever needed taxes before, it's now. And so the government has a part to play in this. And what's interesting this week is that the new trade bill is going through Parliament. And if you've got nothing else to do, Steve, have a look at how that's being discussed in Parliament. Because the government's angle, and again, this is a non-political statement, is interesting in terms of how quickly they want to get this trade bill through. And so I just I would reckon that what they need to do is make sure that there is openness and transparency in the way that they look to negotiate trade deals going forward. Because this trade deal bill that they're putting through Parliament will actually, if it's not done correctly, will set the template for how all trade deals are going to be done in the future. And we've got some big trade deals to negotiate in the future. USA and the EU and the Far East, and the Japanese one is coming up as well. So so there's some basis to begin with. The next thing that we need to do is we need to look at history, and we need to understand what's happened to. If I look at one of the serious problems we've got is China in terms of supply chain. There's an awful lot of companies in this country, manufacturing companies in particular, that are waiting for parts to come out from China in order that they can conclude the manufacturing of whatever it is they manufacture. And I'm working with a manufacturer in the Midlands, and we have that situation. So, and even Jaguar Land Rover themselves, their production of their vehicles stopped for a while because they were waiting, I think, for remote controls to come from China. So let's just look a bit at history for a minute, and hopefully this will be interesting to your audience. If we look at USA and China, for example, okay, so if you look at the US economy, from 1946, I have to get this right, from 1946 to the year 2000, the US economy grew compound rate of 3.5% on average over those years, and that's what made them a superpower. In 2000, when the WTO invited China into the WTO, what you saw was the US economy dropping to 1.9% compound growth. And why was that? It's because all the US major companies started to have their goods manufactured in China. But what the Chinese did was say to everybody, say to Google, to Apple and to the likes of Boeing, if you want your goods made here, you've got to set up a company here. Not just get them made here, you've got to set up a company here. So what happened? By the round, they actually started to gain control of the supply chain, which actually, of the international supply chain, which actually buggered up the entire world. So, what's happened in terms of negotiations? And, I'm going to mention this word once, Trump, okay, for all the dreadful things we can say about him and the non-presidential things we can say about him, there's one thing that he has understood, and that is, and he's almost single-handedly attempted to get out of the hands of the Chinese the global supply chain, which is absolutely critical to all of us going forward. Why does this matter to all of us here in the UK? It's because if our supply chain is hindered, it will have a knock-on effect on all of us. See, I'm supplying consultancy services to a manufacturing company. Well, if they're struggling to manufacture because their supply chain is in difficulty, then they're not going to need most of their staff to finish off the construction of whatever they're manufacturing, and they're certainly not going to need me to help them figure out whether they're going to get the next set of customers and how the sales team is going to operate going forward. Why would they? They've got nothing to operate with. So it's very important that we understand the history of things and that we actually, make sure the government starts to negotiate proper trade deals, because they will have an effect. Coming back to the organisations, have the business organisations been clever enough to actually make those points? I don't think so. I don't think so. What we need is, I think we need some sort of organisation, because what's coming next, Steve, is the Great Reckoning. And the Great Reckoning, Steve, is this, that when we're out of this mess, we are going to have the most enormous bill. At the moment, the projected deficit is £330 billion. You can run the NHS for 3 years on that. That's how big the current bill is, and we haven't finished yet. So my message is this. When we're out of this, you'll probably remember the slogan that David Cameron had when he was Prime Minister. We're all in it together. Okay, so we're all in it together. They soon dropped that slogan when they realised we weren't all in it together.
And we're not really all in it together on this one either, are we?
Well, we are all in it together.
We are at the moment.
Well, we are at the moment, but we have to be going forward, because in order for us to get out of the financial mess that we are going to be in, and remember, it took 65 years to pay back the Americans for war reparations, and we borrowed money off them. The bill we have now is 5 times the size. Yeah,
but surely the difference now is that is a similar bill for all nations. All nations are in the same position with this particular pandemic at the moment. So it's not like we're in isolation here. As it's a global issue, everybody is in the mire.
Well, unless we decide that what we're all going to do collectively is wipe each other's bills out, which I don't think is going to happen, then actually it doesn't matter that we're all in the same. Remember, we've lent money to other countries; they've lent money to us. We have to pay the bill back. Otherwise, we're going to have an absolute almighty nightmare as an economy. But my message is this: we're all in it together, which means that corporations have to pay their corporation tax like the rest of us. You see, for decades now, Steve, I've been saying this for a number of years, especially I was involved in one of the business organisations, that small businesses pay for big businesses, because small businesses cannot afford not to pay their taxes. So corporations now have to pay their way. They have to now be brought to book and to account that they're part of our society like anybody else, and they've got to pay their way. And so there's no more of this kind of trying to figure out how to avoid paying your corporation taxes and offshoring it, etc., etc. That has to stop, because our say to small businesses, we all have to stand up together and go, if they're not paying, we're not paying. Of course, that's not going to happen, and I'm not advocating it. But the point I'm making, Steve, is that all corporations have to start paying their way. And it's interesting how the big American corporations that we all know and we all use, and we all know the names, I remember reading a while back that one of the founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, who helped write the Bill of Independence, but also the Constitution. He was one of the founding fathers that wrote the Constitution. He said, commerce must be, not should be or would be nicer to be. He said, commerce must be fair and equitable. And all I'm asking for is that we have a level playing field, that everybody pays their way in order that we all help each other, and that the corporations and the 1% elite don't run away with it and dump the bill on the rest of us. That isn't how it's going to work going forward. There's my rant. Would you
mind stepping down off the soapbox now? Thank you very much. But it's important, and you're passionate. And I remember you once asked that at a large, I can't remember whether it was a CBI or an FSB meeting, and you asked exactly the same question, didn't you?
Yes. Well, that was an FSB event about 4 years ago when the Chancellor was George Osborne. He came on stage, he gave a speech, and then he asked for questions. I put my hand up and I said, look, Chancellor, my personal corporation tax bill is going to be more than Facebook's. How on earth is that? And all I said to him was, I don't want any special arrangement. I don't want to be let off my corporation tax. I'm happy to pay. But what I do want is a level playing field. And we've never needed that more than now. And I just don't hear those bodies that are representing businesses saying to government, enough is enough. We're all in it together. We all have to pay. And, you know, having had experience of run some of those organisations, it's because they're afraid of actually upsetting ministers. I don't care anymore. You know what? We've got a massive bill coming.
The ministers are there to serve us and not the other way around. Linda has said, let's see, she says, corporations also need to pay their small suppliers on time. That's important. Tim's been back on again. This is quite an interesting comment. Tax planning is not in the nation's best interest right now, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It isn't.
Now,
the best thing,
sorry, keep going, sorry.
The best things in our interest is that we as businesses, right, do some of the things that I suggested this afternoon to everybody, so that we come out of this raring to go, focused, understanding what we're doing, ready to get back on the horse and build our businesses, so that we actually are a net contributor to the exchequer. But we're all in it together, and so this is not a time for businesses to start doing some sort of hokey pokey tax planning, because you know what, and HMRC have got their part to play in this, because HMRC allocate a tax manager to some of the big corporations so that they can actually have a conversation about what they can and can't do. So, you know, I think
I received some correspondence from the tax office this morning, as did you. Listen, there was one question. There you go. There's yours. There's one question that came in earlier on, and I think this is what's always interesting when you do something like this. We're nearly at the end, by the way. It's about what is on your bookshelf. And David Richards said, he says, you've got Caesar. I'm interested that you have Caesar on your bookshelf. What lessons can be learned from Caesar? Because it is on your bookshelf. You can just see it there, just over your shoulder.
Okay. Well, I've got a few books. I've got Steve Jobs on my bookshelf. You see behind me. I've got a few. Alexander the Great, Napoleon. What are these people? Well, history teaches us a lot, Steve. And one of the things that I think we can learn from the Romans and Caesar is and there's a great book I've got here, by the way, which I'm reading and I flicked through. It's called The Book of the Courtier, and this is all about how on earth you conduct yourself and how to be stoic and how to do the right things. So what can we learn from the past? We can learn a lot. One, I think it's all about doing the job right, having a plan, being, I use this word advisedly, I was going to say ruthless, but actually I mean focused. Be focused. You know, the Roman Empire was built off the back of a plan and off the back of a very focused set of individuals that were striving towards something. Now, so that's the advice I would give off the back of that. Have a plan, be focused, and strive towards something.
Well done. Listen, you've done a fantastic job today. You've rattled on for over an hour, which is fabulous. I always ask my guests to give a key takeaways. Please do not make this just a straight, I'm Antonio Falco, get in touch with me. What are the real key takeaways? A summary of the hour. You've got a couple of minutes if you wish. Say who you are, where you're from, and the airwaves, Antonio, are all yours.
Well, I'm going to take the opportunity, Steve, and not talk about me. People can look me up and just Google my name. I'm more interested in you as a business. We're going to need you going forward. So please take the opportunity of doing the things I've said in this program. Review your business, understand what you're about, figure out how you can get better, and figure out what your customers are going to need from you in the future. Look back at some of your customers. See if you can go and sell them another product or service, an additional add-on, if you will. But most of all, take heart that we'll get through this. You will have a business at the other end of this. You will be successful. And I'm not just saying that because it's the right thing to do. I just think if you've already taken the plunge, you've already had the gumption to actually start a business. And what you've got to remember is that you've got more guts and gumption than most people that run corporations. Remember, most people who run corporations are employees. You're actually an owner who's had the gumption to put it all on the line and actually make something out of nothing. If you've done that already, believe me, you've got what it takes to go forward.
Absolutely fantastic. I look forward to having you in the studio as soon as we possibly can in the very near future. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the program today. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. You look after yourself. Tell you what, have the rest of the day off, okay?
I can't. Okay, thank you.
The fabulous Antonio Falco there. And my thanks to him and my thanks to you for watching today's program. Hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. It's always interesting to get other people's views and comments. Thank you very much for all the people who got in touch with us on social media as well. Thank you for your questions and sharing your knowledge too, because that's what this is all about. We are a business community sharing our knowledge to other people who are in the same situation, the same circumstances as we are. Listen, we're going to do it all again next week, even though it's a bank holiday. I think we've got Steve Mills is going to be joining me on the program next week. Steve Mills, a really good guy, and he's going to be on the show next Monday. So it is a bank holiday, but hey, it's just another day. Join me next week at 12 noon here on Business Connections Live. But from Antonio Falco, Antonio, thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
And myself, Steve Hyland, have a great week till we do it all again next Monday at 12 noon. Stay safe.
Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel.